Jamal Niaz here at For the Love of Wrestling with Monopoly Events with the gold standard himself, Shelton Benjamin. How amazing is it being back in the UK and seeing all the love of the fans, man?
It's awesome. I mean, anytime I can get out and, especially come across the pond, because I don't get out here a lot. It's always fun to come and see the fans and, just revel in their adoration. So it's a lot of fun.
You are one of the most athletically gifted wrestlers ever, and I know a lot of people are going to be asking you where they're going to see you next, because everyone wants to see you back in a wrestling ring on television very, very soon. I can speak for myself and say I'd love to see you in AEW with the roster they've got. Ospreay, potentially Okada's going over there, right. MJF. Is there anyone on that roster where you're looking at, and those names that I mentioned, where you like?
Honestly, the names actually, Okada, while I work alongside him in New Japan, we never actually had a match. So I would love to work with Okada. Obviously, I would love to work with Will Ospreay because I think that guy's phenomenal. I've been watching him for years, and people call me athletic, but I mean, he does stuff that I couldn't even. It would put me in traction, even try some of the moves he does. But I would love to. I would love to work with him. I think it could be a lot of fun. So those names are at the top of my list. But obviously, I enjoy what I do. I love what I do, and I can pretty much mesh with anybody. So it's just a matter of what they think. But as far as AEW goes, that door's open. Like my door's open. I haven't eliminated any possibilities as of yet.
That's great to hear. Because if you like coming to the UK, they've got a little event called All In at Wembley, which would be absolutely perfect to be involved in that. There'd be incredible spots, amazing matches like I've mentioned there. So that could be potentially on your radar as well.
It could be. Again, the ball's really in their court. But like I said, it's pro wrestling, so you never know what's going to happen.
What's absolutely amazing as well is, I no doubt people are going to bring it up today because they'll bring it up most times a wrestling fan speaks to, is the Shawn Michaels match, which is one of the best matches in the history of Raw. I remember when I was growing up, when I was a young kid, I was about 6 or 7, there was a best of Raw DVD set of the last 15 years that had been around, and that was on there. Watched that match, and I was like, this guy sat right next to me is one of the best wrestlers I've ever seen. Now that spot, you didn't even think it was that special when you did it. It was only when you went backstage and you got a round of applause.
Yeah, but I guess I have a long history of that, just because back then, especially back then, I was a big kid. I was bouncing off the walls. I was, it's pretty much, if you gave me an athletic challenge, I just did it because no one ever gave me the impression that I couldn't or wasn't supposed to be able to. So when that spot came up, it was just a matter of, hey, Shelton, can you? And I was like, yeah, just tell me where you need me to be and I'll be there. Like, if he can get his leg up, I can get to him wherever he is. And I think they just wanted me to do like one little rehearsal just to get an idea. And I'm like, I could jump clear from one side of the ring. I could probably jump out the other side, like if I really wanted to back then. But for me, it was
just nothing.
It was something my mom used to whip me all the time for, the type of stuff I would do like that. So.
At least you got paid for it as well.
Yeah, at least I got paid. My real mom never. She didn't show up at the arena with the belt.
But you talk about those amazing moments. The Money in the Bank match was an absolute showcase for your talents, and it is criminal that you never get to win one, because the running up the ladder and the clothesline on Chris Jericho was incredible. The WrestleMania 22 one, where the ladder was like positioned on one of the ring ropes and you run up it and do the front flip. The most painful looking one was when you got pushed off the ladder and you front flipped through the ladder.
That would be the most painful one. Now, mind you, going through the ladder wasn't what hurt. It was when the ladder broke in half, and obviously it split, and it fell. So it was like bang through the ladder, and then there was kind of a bouncy feeling for me, and then bang again. But this time it was on the floor, and I was still on part of the ladder, which was shorter, so it was harder. And there was a step right in my spine that just went pow. Like, That was the only thing that everything else was fine, but just that last little when the ladder broke and the ladder fell, that hurt because it just boom, like it was like concrete. Oh, I hope you guys like it.
we did like it. We did like it.
But most of those spots I did, while I never won one of them, I always made it a point to make sure I was in the conversation just when people discussed the match. So for me, it was about making memories, doing stuff that, like I said, win, lose, or draw, I'll still be remembered and I'll still be mentioned and all these other things. So, yeah, would I like to have won one? Well, of course, but I still feel like I am what Money in the Bank is today. Like I feel like it was built off of me in a huge way. Like not just me, but I do feel like I am a noted highlight of that match. So
what Gunther is doing with the Intercontinental title, you were doing way back in 2006. You revitalized that championship and put it on the map. And you mentioned Carlito and John Hennigan, right. One of the best triple threat matches of the modern era.
Yeah, so me and those guys, me, Carlito, and John, one, they're both amazing talent. So it's really easy to have great matches when you have great talent. And we all meshed together so well. And so far as that match goes, that actually is one of my favorite matches of all time. But I also have to put in the caveat of we had a lot of triple threats on live events, non-televised events that were 10 times better than that pay-per-view. Wow. That pay-per-view match had to be somewhat edited for time.
Yeah.
And certain spots that, as far as I don't know how the British would see it, but the American TV audience was some of the stuff probably wouldn't have gone over as well just because, it involved Melina and things like that. So, but it was so much better on the live. If you saw it on the live event, the pay-per-view match was actually a watered-down version.
Oh, man. Making me jealous. So if I could time travel back, I would time travel back to one of those live events. Vengeance 06 was the pay-per-view, by the way. Right. An incredible time in wrestling. Last one. Obviously, you're at a different stage in your career now, and you had mentioned that Eddie Guerrero was a massive influence in terms of being a mentor and helped you sort of go on the fly with him. That was an incredible thing that you learned from him. What's it been like being on the other side, being a mentor for the up-and-coming guys now? And is there anyone in particular that you've loved showing the ropes to?
So on one hand, it's scarier because once you actually learn how to, as you said, work, then you realize how you start realizing how good you were not when you were younger. So for me, it's having been an amateur wrestling coach, like teaching's in my blood. So I enjoy teaching young guys. I don't like coming off as that, I know it all, because I believe, there are many ways to accomplish the same goal in wrestling with the same moves and things like that. So my philosophy might not match up with other people, but as a teacher, I enjoy doing it. Honestly, one of my favorite pupils was Cedric. And I think he got the benefit from, myself, MVP, Bobby. And like I said, he's legit like my little brother. So I really enjoyed showing him the ropes. As much as I hate to ruin this interview by bringing up Mia Yim, she sits under my learning tree pretty often, and so she's killing it. You're not going to air this part, are you? Like, we can't have me compliment Mia Yim anywhere on my.
No comment.
Hey, yeah, I need to beep out this entire section. But
I'm gonna be in big trouble.
So yeah, but again, I really enjoyed the role of. I like thinking of myself as big brother, especially with the younger talent, and that's pretty much how I approach everything. I'm always there to help. Sometimes younger guys tend to respect the push rather than the knowledge, and if you can figure out what I mean by that, and I should just explain. who's ever being on top is a lot of times, I think, and I was guilty of it too. Younger talent tend to look at, well, who's on top, who's doing good, who's doing great, and instead of, and while all that's important to learn from those people, you also got to look at, well, who's been around the longest, who's worked with the most people, who's the most diverse, and one of the first lessons I learned was, and I don't even think fans realize sometimes the wrestlers, if you're confused or want to know something to do, ask the ref. Wow. Because you think about a guy, one of my favorite refs, Mike Chioda. Think about all the matches that he's been involved in, like Charles Robinson. So a lot of times there's knowledge all around you. So you can't just focus on who's the top guy. You're like, who's been here the longest? Who's made the most money? Who's changed their gimmick successfully? You got to look at all those things and not just who's on top. Because a lot of times it boils down to, well, the office just likes them. They could suck. And there have been guys who I think personally suck that got great opportunities. Nothing against them personally. So I won't name names. But, people can figure out actual champions between guys who had an era. So it's like, again, if you're a young up-and-coming wrestler, don't just pay attention to the guy who's on top. And I'm not saying that because they never put me in that position. I'm saying that because if you want to actually have a long career, I've been doing this 24 years. I've never held a real job. I've never missed a mortgage payment. My kids have always been fed, and for me, life is amazing. So, yeah, I'm kind of rambling right now, but I feel like that's the part of getting older. Older guys tell stories.
Tell great stories as well. But I know a lot of people want to meet you today. Everyone's geeking out about meeting you and the stacked guests that we have here at For the Love of Wrestling today. Wow. And yeah,
like some of the people, even I was like, "Whoa, you're here too!" Like,
who are you geeking out over?
Yeah. So believe it or not, I never met Ken Shamrock.
Wow.
Even though I was almost his sparring partner back when I was in college. He probably doesn't even know the story. But I was almost Ken Shamrock's sparring partner while he was still doing UFC, and I think they said he needed a big wrestler to prepare for his upcoming match with one of the Gracies. So Horace Gracie, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Horace Gracie.
Yeah.
So I was actually really excited to see him, but also, like I said, Riddle, Rikishi, like all these people, like, when you spend 20-something years with them, like, this is my family. So a lot of times this is the only place that I see some of the guys. So again, it's great for the fans and it's great for us too.
And it's a great time for you to appreciate everything that you've done in your career. That class is it class of 2002 OVW? Because you, Cena, Orton, just absolutely crazy what you've gone on to achieve as a collective.
Yeah, myself, Cena, Orton, Batista, Lesnar, Victoria, Eugene, Rob Conway, Jazz, Nydia, Mark Henry, Big Show. Like, there was a lot of us, and I think what made the class special was, again, we were all new. Aside from Big Show and like Mark Henry, no one had ever really been on the road. So we all made it a point to help each other. Like, we wanted to be overqualified because, WWE had options as far as where they could pool the talents they could pull from. And we all worked together to make sure that everyone was overqualified when they got up there. So WWE would keep coming back to our pool. And they did. And like I said, I believe we have the greatest class of all time. So
NXT, nothing in NXT, no year of NXT will ever top that.
Right.
No.
Yeah, I love NXT, but you guys are spoiled.
I really appreciate your time, man. I know a lot of people want to meet you. So, yeah, thanks so much. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, one of the most athletically gifted wrestlers we have ever seen and one of the most entertaining wrestlers we've ever seen in the ring. Appreciate your time, man.
Thank you.